Welcome back for video 2 of Excel Project 9. In the last project, we kind of went through some of the basics of Excel, refreshing our memory from last year or introducing you to Excel if you're new to it. In this video, we are going to work a little bit more with the formulas that we started to talk about in that last video. So as I explained, Excel is a math program. That's what it's designed to do. And whenever you're working with numbers, we're often working with decimals. And one of the problems with Excel is that it's a computer, so it can't read your mind. So a lot of times whenever it does the math problems, it may make some rounding mistakes. And whenever you go through your textbook and work on your document, you're actually going to encounter a rounding mistake. So we're going to talk about how to fix that. To make sure that Excel rounds a formula to the correct decimal, you need to include the round function. So if you look here on my document, I've got some numbers here. Okay, and so in this cell, even though it's, sorry about that. Even though it shows $250, it's actually entered as $250.25. So there's some decimals included in these cells, even though I can't see them. So when I put in my total function here, I told Excel, up here you can see, I told it to add up B21 through 23. So I told it to add up these three numbers and put that number here. And so when it did that, it just added those numbers up, which included those decimals. So when I look at it, that total expenses actually has a decimal point there, and I don't necessarily want to see that because when I look at the document it doesn't make sense. Adding $250, $500, and $301 doesn't end up in decimal points, so I need to change that. So to do that, I'm going to come up here to my formula, and right after the equal sign I'm going to click, and you're going to see my insertion point blinking there, and I'm going to type in all caps round. And as I do, you're actually going to see it pop up. This is a function that's already entered, but I'm going to finish typing the word round. And so what I'm telling Excel right now is whatever I'm about to put in parentheses is what I want you to round for me. So I'm going to tell it I want you to round the sum of B1 to 23, and then at the end of that formula I'm going to put a comma. And then I'm going to tell it how many digits do I want you to round to. I don't want you to round any of those things, so I'm going to put a 0 there. I want it to round to a 0. And I'm going to close my parentheses. Parentheses tell us, your order of operations. And I'm going to hit enter. And you're going to see now, instead of seeing 1051.33, I now see 1051 and 0 cents. So that makes a little bit more sense for what I'm actually seeing on my document. Now my number reflects a little bit closer to what the numbers I was adding up were. So once you've entered in a formula, you can copy that formula to adjacent cells. Adjacent means cells that are directly next to it, either directly to the right or directly below. So whenever you're entering in a formula, I'm going to come over here. If you use the cell reference, when you copy a formula, you can copy it with what's called a relative reference. I know that this is a lot of big words, but what a relative reference is that whenever we're copying it, it's automatically going to change the cell reference to reflect this formula's new position in the worksheet. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. So let's say in this formula, in this cell right here, I'm going to enter in, I want it to add up, so I'm going to put sum of these four numbers. And I've got a problem here, so let's see what's going on. I want the sum. Part of it may be the fact that it's not in capitals. The sum of these four numbers. It's getting late. Sum, let's try this again. You got to put it in parentheses. That's my problem right now. And I'm going to highlight the four cells that I want it to add up. and then I'm going to close my cells. So like I said, order of operations, you got to tell it in parentheses what you want it to add up. So now I've got my formula. I'm going to hit enter, and that totaled up to 1,150. So now I have my formula entered, I've used my cell references, and I want to add these four numbers up. I could go through the process of retyping the sum function and reworking that formula, or I can come here to the cell that I've already done that to, and if I move to the bottom right hand corner of that box, that cell, you're going to see my mouse pointer. This is the chunky white plus sign, and when I move that chunky white plus sign to the bottom right hand corner of the cell, I'm going to get a skinny black plus sign. That skinny black plus sign is what we refer to as the fill handle. And what we're going to tell Excel is whatever is in this cell that I have highlighted right now, I want you to copy it and I want you to fill it in to the cells I'm about to select. So I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to scroll down to highlight the following two cells right below it. And I'm telling Excel that the two cells right below this one, I want you to copy that formula and I want you to move it into these other two cells. So when I let go, it does the math for me. And you can see that it didn't just copy that $1,150. So when I said the relative reference, what that means is if I look at my original cell, it copied B21 through E21, and the cell right below it, it added B22 to E22. So you can see that formula has changed when I copied it, and that formula is changed to reflect the new position that it is in the document. Okay? One issue that you will run into sometimes is that you may not want Excel to automatically change that cell reference. And so if that happens, we need to be able to figure out a way to tell Excel, no, that's not what I want you to do. So let's say that I'm going to come right into this cell. This is an actual thing, as I'm just kind of demonstrating for you what you would want. But let's say that I want, this is actually going to be a better box up here. I want to take 450 times 80. Actually, that's not going to work either. Let's try this again. I want to take the 250 times 80. So I'm going to hit equal, because that's the way I tell Excel that I'm getting ready to start a formula. This is like telling Excel whatever I'm about to type, this is going to be a math problem. So I hit equals. I'm going to click on cell E21 where it says 250. I'm going to hit the asterisk on the keypad, or you can also use Shift 8. And that's the multiplication symbol. So I'm telling Excel that I want you to multiply this times cell J12, which is where I see the 80, and I'm going to hit enter. So it's multiplied that for me, and the answer was 20,000. So let's say I want to copy this down. If I copy this formula down, I'm going to run into a problem, because what it's doing is it's thinking that I want to move everything down a row. So it's telling me that I want to take E22, which you can see highlighted in blue right here, times J13. Like I said, it's wanting to move everything in that formula down a row, and that's not actually what we want to do. We want to take E22 times J12. So I'm going to come back up here to my original formula, and to tell Excel I don't want you to move this particular cell, I'm going to come up to my formula, and in front of the J, I'm going to put the $sign. And I'm also going to put the $sign in front of the 12. So now when you look at my formula, it says equal E21 times $sign J $sign 12. Now I'm going to hit enter, and I still have the 20,000 here. But now when I fill down, it keeps that J12 on all three formulas. So even though my E cell is changing from E21, E22, E23, that J12 cell is not changing. It's going to take those 3 different cells and multiply it by the J12. So that's something that you're also going to have to do in this chapter. You can manually enter the dollar signs like I did. The other option that you have is you can highlight J12 and then hit F4 on the keyboard and it would put in the dollar signs. I am somebody who likes to do things manually. I don't always trust those keyboard shortcuts not to mess me up. So if you want to enter them manually, you can do that just like I did. Otherwise, you can use the F4 key. At this point, you should be ready to complete all of the Apply It activities on pages 219 through 224. Once again, if you run into any problems or questions, check the textbook first. Make sure that it's not giving you those step-by-step instructions and maybe you're just not, you're reading carefully or you're skipping over something. If it's not in the textbook, come back to the video. Make sure that it's not already covered in the video. If it's not in one of those 2 places, or if it is, but you're just not quite sure, feel free to ask me in class. Make sure that you have a specific question. Don't tell me I don't understand. I don't understand. It's hard to answer that because it's not a question to begin with. So make sure that you have a specific question, that you need something specific help. Don't just say I need help or I don't understand. I need to know what you need help with. So at this point, this is the end of video 2. You can go on and complete your textbook activities or move on to video 3.